Welcome to our first ever Paces Paideia video training seminar for teaching how to teach a basic essay format. This is the basic format of essays, 5 paragraphs that will work for almost any essay type. And more advanced essays will build upon or expand upon 5 paragraphs, but this is the basic generic format. First, wanted to start with clarifying some of the terms because we frequently use thesis and topic interchangeably, and we shouldn't because they do mean different things. A thesis is essay level. It's what the whole essay is about, what you're trying to prove, the points you're trying to make, the information you're trying to convey. The topic is paragraph level. It's what each individual paragraph is about. Obviously supporting the thesis, the proof that you're making, but it's the topic of each individual paragraph. This is the writing process, 8 steps. And you really should go through each one of them in this sequence. But obviously your student needs to know something about what he's writing about. He needs to read books, read the Bible, do research to know the information that he's going to write about in the essay that he's assigned. Next thing is to organize the information, to change it into, put it on a graphic format. We usually teach the students to do Venn diagrams, T-charts, bubble graphs, bubble charts, various things, whichever is appropriate for the type of essay. And I'll walk you through a little one of them later in this presentation. From the graph, you convert it into an outline. And from the outline, you convert the information into sentences and paragraphs that makes your first draft. Now, it's not the rough draft, that comes later. But the first draft is just getting the information out of the graphic organizer and the outline onto paper in paragraph format. You revise that looking for any holes or information you might need to gather instead. Is there research that you need to do? Is there some points that you didn't quite prove or make very well? Or maybe some things out in the wrong order, if it should be chronological and you got it out of order. Look for those sorts of things when you're revising. Next comes the editing, where you check for grammar and mechanics and punctuation. Then the rough draft. After all of that, you now have what's called the rough draft, which you then polish with comments from teachers and editors and other people into the final draft. And you may go back and forth between rough draft polishing and final draft several times. These are the 5 paragraphs. This is the format that's appropriate for nearly all types of essays. And you see the first paragraph is introduction. Then you have your topic A, a paragraph. That topic is about the thesis. Topic B is the 3rd paragraph, topic C for the 4th paragraph, and then a conclusion. We can thank Christy Bailey for this graphic that is very helpful in kind of thinking of how do these paragraphs fit together. Note it, you start at the introduction, and the introduction gets broader, wider, like as the umbrella gets bigger, indicating that the thesis statement is now going to encompass your 3 topics. Then each of those paragraphs underneath that are like the 3 small umbrellas. Each one of those topics starts narrow and gets wider as you talk about more information about that topic. Moving on to the next topic, then the next topic, and then your conclusion at the bottom is like the upside down umbrella, where you're starting wide because you've just now been talking or writing about 3 topics. And you summarize those briefly and come back to the main point. The thesis is what you were trying to prove in the end. And notice it all comes to a pointy point. It comes to the purpose of your essay. You want to state that as the final sentence in the end of the essay. For the purposes of this video training, we're going to talk about a comparison-contrast essay because it lends itself very well to this 5-paragraph format. With this type of essay, we start with the graphic organizer, like always, this time a Venn diagram. The 2 circles overlapping, 1 circle for everything you know about one issue, one subject, the other circle for everything about the other subject, and obviously the overlap is for what they should have in common. And we're picking as our topic this one, compare the life of a Hebrew in Egypt to the life of a Hebrew in the wilderness. Topics are food, work, worship, leisure time, clothing, shelter, authority. We've had our students pick 3 of those and do Venn diagrams for each of those 3. I'm going to work through one of them with this video today. Here's a Venn diagram that I filled out. And you can see I kept the lines more or less equivalent as you go across the screen. Water in one circle is across from water in the other circle, so that that tends to organize the information better. As I was filling out all this information, as we worked through this in class with the students, I noticed a theme developing about how everything God provided for food and water for the Hebrews when they lived in Egypt was through natural means, but in the wilderness, everything, all of their food and water eventually was provided from them directly from God, not through so much through natural means. The manna, the quail, all of those were miracles that God provided for them directly. I thought that was a very interesting theme developing, and I thought this would be excellent to include in the essay. Not all of your students will necessarily come to these conclusions or realize this, but if they do, definitely encourage them to include that in their essay. That is the kind of thing that makes an essay really stand out. So the next step was to take this, all the information on this Venn diagram, and convert it into an outline. Remember the introduction, topic A, topic B, topic C, and so on. This would be topic A, food. Next thing that comes after that, we want 3 points about food. We could mention in Egypt, the Hebrews grew their own food and raised their own goats and livestock and acquired their water from wells and cisterns the same way the Egyptians were, through those natural means. When they first left Egypt, they had the provisions they brought with them, which would have been more or less the same food. But eventually that ran out. And then our third point, that while they were in the wilderness, God provided for them through miraculous means. So there's our 3 points under topic A. As you develop the essay, you're going to have 3 points for topic B. And notice the symmetry of 3 points inside of the 3 topics. The 3 inside of 3 makes for a pretty strong essay. You can further flesh out the outline by putting numbers 1, 2, and 3 underneath each A, B, and C. So there's more information talking about food in the Egypt, food in both places, food in the wilderness. You want to have typically more than just 3 sentences in your paragraph. So have your students add new points underneath those A, B, and C level for each of the 3 topics. I mentioned thesis statements, and here's an example of a good one. From slavery to freedom, life for the Hebrews leaving Egypt changed very little in how they worked, worshipped, and played. And what makes this a good one is that it tells what this essay is going to prove. We're going to talk about and prove that life changed very little. So I have that in blue. And the 3 topics, how they worked, worshipped, and played in the 3 colors. So it gives both what we're trying to prove and the 3 topics, all in one sentence. That makes a really good thesis sentence that goes at the end of the first paragraph. This is another example. This one's a little more complex. When God led the Hebrews out of slavery in Egypt and into freedom in the wilderness, life became very different in what they ate and how they made their homes, yet their clothing changed little. So here, the essay writer is going to prove 2 things. So it's a little more complex. Your students may come up with that, or they may not. They may say, oh, it either changed a lot or it changed very little. Either way, you can build a pretty good essay. In conclusion, I want to go back to this slide showing the nesting, the 3 inside of 3. You want to have your student take the information from their Venn diagram, convert it to an outline, and then from the outline, the notes that are on the outline, they can very easily turn into sentences. And when they write those as sentences and they keep them grouped according to topic A, topic B, topic C, those will be naturally become paragraphs. It's not going to be a beautiful gem just yet, but it will be an essay that conveys information. And so from this point, you will continue on with the revising stage. You might have a few sentences that are weak. You need to add some IEW techniques like sentence openers or dress-ups to make them stronger. You might identify some points that are backwards in time, like perhaps talking about the wilderness before you talk about Egypt. That's chronologically backwards. It feels awkward when you read it. You'll probably notice it at this stage. That's going to be your rough draft. Then you would continue polishing it with, correcting the grammar and punctuation and things like that. And pretty soon you're up to the final stage, and it's an essay worth turning in. I hope you find this video tutorial helpful and educational, and that you find it a pleasure to read and develop your students' writing.